I'm working on two separate projects right now. They're both for publishers. One is my audiobook and the other one is another narrator's audiobook. And I thought this would be a really fun video to make on the different ways that I set up my DAW and my files based off of whose work I'm working on, right? Because how I set it up for myself is completely different than how I set it up for other people's audio. For other people's audio, I am given each chapter in a different file. So there's a lot of audio files. And so what I'll do is I'll just create different tracks. And I do that for a reason. It makes, editing is editing for me either way. It's kind of the same old, same old. It's the same process, no matter whether it's my audio or somebody else's. But proofing can be faster this way because you can see the time if you're going to proof. Sometimes I proof within the DAW, sometimes I proof on an MP3 player. It just depends on, like one on my computer. It just depends on how I'm feeling that day. I usually like to do the MP3 player because I like to hear it after it's normalized and everything's completely done. I like to hear the final product one more time. So that's usually how I'll do that. And so that also makes pickups like real easy, real fast. You just plug them in. Everything starts at 0, so it's really easy to find where they are in the chapters. But you do have to be careful when you're doing that, because if you happen to accidentally bump that audio that you're trying to plug in into another track, it'll split that track, and then you end up with overlapping audio that you have to spread apart. And sometimes it's words that get split for absolutely no reason, right? Well, because you split the audio, but it does tend to like make things go bah, and you have to go back and fix it. It doesn't take a terribly long amount of time, but it is frustrating and takes unnecessary time. So I do urge caution if you do it that way, that you have to be careful. Another con is you have to render everything individually. Like you have to wait for each chapter to finish before you start the next one, and that takes forever. Instead, what I prefer is to do it how I do it for my audio, is everything is on one track. The entire audiobook, one track. And from there, I will, again, editing is the same. And once each chapter is edited, I will create what's called a region. I use Reaper as my DAW, and we have what's called regions. And it's just a little parameter that when you render, it just renders within that parameter. So you do want to make sure that your lines are lined up exactly where your audio begins and ends for that chapter. And then I label that chapter exactly what I want my chapter file to look like. And then I like to add fun colors. You don't have to, but I like to make each render or each region a different color so that I can see, and I like colorful. You know, a highlighter really hates to see me come in. It really does. So do markers. So I'm a color fool. So everything is color coded. And then at the very end, what I'll do is I will do what's called batch rendering, and I will select everything, put my render screen to where it renders all of my regions, hit render, and I step away because my computer is not going to be able to be used until that is done. And then it just automatically renders each chapter right after another. It just automatically just goes, and it makes it so much faster. But the downside is, and it's a little downside, it's not a huge downside, is when I go to plug in my pickups, I have to highlight from the start of that chapter and go to where the time stamp is. So it takes a little bit longer, but it's a little thing. But yeah, so that's the two different ways that you can do it, and I'm sure that other people have other ways. Those are the two main ways that I know of. Actually, they're the only two ways that I know of. And this is a personal preference, guys. This is not, you have to do it this way, you have to do it the other. It's what works best for you. What makes your workflow streamlined and faster. And, what you're comfortable with. So, I hope this helps, and maybe you can try one or the other and try them both out, see which one you like. But just be careful. Again, be careful if you're doing different tracks, because you can mess up everything. You can mess up, like, you could be on chapter 20 and mess up chapter 1. Like, it's insane. I might be speaking from personal experience. Anyway, have a great day.